Hello, everybody, and welcome to Total Travel Time. This is Arturo. First and foremost, I want to apologize. I'm a little bit under the weather right now, and I might sound a little different, but it is with the same love, cariño, y afecto of always. So, today, I wanted to talk to you about the differences between being a healthcare interpreter and a legal certified or qualified interpreter. So they're two different fields, but in reality, they're two of the most busy in the US. So I wanted to talk to you about one and the other. I happen to be certified in both. I was able to obtain my certification through healthcare via CCHI, which is the Certification Commission for Healthcare Interpreters, and I was able to go through the state's certification to be able to interpret for the courts. The entity that certifies interpreters in Pennsylvania, which is my home state, is called the AOPC. So, it's the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts. So, I wanted to talk to you about the differences between one and the other. I know that a lot of people are afraid of the legal one, mostly healthcare interpreters and many legal or in that field, many interpreters that just do law and do that side or that field, they feel like maybe like healthcare is spooky too. So I just want to put your feelings at rest and probably just speak a little bit more about both and one another and each other and to just explore it. So just getting it out there. So I do have a list, and I just divided it into the topics that I think that would be of most interest. I just wanted to share with you each of them and maybe just discuss them, just so you have an idea. I'm recording by myself today, so Laura, she decided that she didn't want to participate. She says she's too good for the podcast, so I'm like, okay, Laura, I'm so sorry. I'll just record without you. When she hears this, she's gonna kill me. But the reality is that it's very busy. We can't complain. It's been a very busy season, and we all have things to do. So I know that I'm recording at a time that is not feasible for everybody. So I just wanted to take the time and not record because I know that the information is important for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. So healthcare versus legal. The first thing is that I could think of is the requirements for certification. So, in order to get certified in the healthcare industry, there's a few requirements that you must meet according to the CCHI and BCMI. So you have those two options to get certified in the medical healthcare field in the US. So I think that actually you can get certified outside of the US with NBCMI if I'm not mistaken, but I leave that up to you to do some homework there. But CCHI, the requirements are that you have to have verifiable training, 40-hour training, that's the minimum, and you're supposed to prove proficiency in both languages or the languages that you want to get certified in. Just to name you a few that do have what is called an oral test. It's Spanish, Mandarin, and Arabic. The other ones, they do have a different process called E to E now, which you can get certified without not necessarily taking an oral test in both languages that you want to get certified in. I don't know how they do it, it's just magic, but it's fantastic. They were doing some research on that and they were able to come up with a solution to not have just an oral test in every single language, but more of a way of certifying somebody that, that oral test is not available for. It's a fantastic and phenomenal concept, and I applaud them for that. But to give you a little bit of more input on what the process looks like, you just have to get registered, and through that registration is when they verify your credentials and your qualifications. They verify your training and they verify your proficiency, and then you submit it. Once it has been submitted, you have to make a payment for the registration. Once you submit it, they tell you, okay, yes, you qualify, then just schedule your written test. So the first test is a written test. You have to go to a location, or I'm not sure if they already have it that you can do a remote. I'm not completely sure, but I know that once you take the test. You would be able to know right away if you passed or not. And then you would have to schedule your oral test. So the written test is more like the protocol, the standards, and some terminology, um, but they focus more on what the encounter is like. So it's obviously to be sure that the professional or the newcomer in the industry or the person who has been doing it for a while knows what everybody else is doing. It's basically standardization. So the oral test is it comprises a simultaneous part, consecutive part, and side translation. So they are all tools that you might need when you're out in the field. So they're very, very important. And an interpreter that is going to be working in healthcare has to have command of all three. Now, the what I would recommend anyone taking the certification test is just basically, taking it one step at a time. I would take it one step at a time, and if I register, I register. Then I prepare for the written. When I take the written, then I just prepare for the oral. So don't get overwhelmed. Now, those are the requirements for the healthcare one. Truth be told, they are more strict when it comes to certification. I think the MBCMI is very similar as well, but I mean, in healthcare in particular, because on the legal side now, these are the requirements basically. So when you are attempting to get certified in your state, you are going to have to register to take the test. You register and basically confirm where you live. You just basically let them know who you are and what languages you want to get certified for. Now, once they receive that certification or that registration, sorry, then you go to do an orientation. That orientation is basically letting you know what is expected of you, how to do your work. It's a orientation that takes 2 days in my state, and it basically prepares you for life at court or life in the legal field because you're not necessarily just going you're just going to be working at court. But if you noticed, it's pretty straightforward. But I've noticed that anybody can actually just go and register and take a test. The real filter are the tests. Because when you take the written test, then you would be able to see if you are really that proficient in the languages as you think you are, and that comes after the orientation. So after the orientation, they tell you, okay, now you're ready. That's a prerequisite for the written test. Then you are able to take the written test. You have to go somewhere to take it. You can't do it remote. Then you take it, and once you pass it, it takes a little bit for you to get the results, a few weeks. But once you get that the results, then you are open to take the oral test. Now, in my state, first you take the simultaneous, and then after you pass simultaneous, then it's when you take on the same day consecutive and side translation. So I thought about it at first. It was like a little weird, but it makes absolute sense because you might be okay in consecutive, and consecutive it's paramount is very necessary. It's just it's the basis for interpretation when you're in a conversation with just two people. But when you are not doing that, you're basically doing simultaneous. So simultaneous is very, very necessary at court. So what they do is that since simultaneous might be a little bit more challenging for some people, they just go with the simultaneous first, and then when you pass that, then you can take consecutive and cite on the same day. Um, it takes a while. It takes a while. It takes a few months for the whole process to, be done. But at the end of the process, then they place, depending on your score, they just take an average and they place you either as a qualified interpreter, registered, certified, or master. So master is the highest scores, then followed by certified, et cetera, et cetera. I'll talk a little bit more about that and what that means in regards to rates and availability. But that's pretty much in a nutshell. So basically, the requirements for certification, I would give the point to the legal side because it's less or fewer requirements. When you do the healthcare, you have to get trained and have some type of certificate, and that costs money usually. So interpreters that want to be serious or that want to get into the industry and want to get certified through healthcare, more than likely will have to pay for that 40 to 60 hour training, which I don't believe that is enough anyway, because it's very short amount of time for people to be able to get the skills necessary and ready. But some people do. Some people are ready, and some people are really talented. But if you don't get discouraged. That doesn't mean that you are a bad interpreter or that you're never gonna get it. But it just means that you need a little bit more practice, and it's good to reach out and seek help. So, yeah, I would say that in regards to requirements for certification, I would give the point to legal. I like legal better in that sense. So, okay, the next point, protocols. How is it different? How is one different from the other? Surprisingly, they're very similar in most of the aspects. It's very standard. It's basically your job is to interpret, and you're interpreting when there's what more than two people with you, two or more. So if you're with one person, then obviously you're not interpreting. That means you leave the room or get away. You are not supposed to have conversations. Same thing in healthcare, and legal is the same. So basically, you're there and repeating the message without adding, taking away, or changing the meaning. So that's basically it. Everything else is a little bit of fluff. But the major difference in protocols that I would say in legal and healthcare is the fact that you have advocacy in healthcare. If you are aware of advocacy and you have been trained as an interpreter, you know that there are certain situations in which you are supposed to step out of your role and be an advocate for the patient or for the LEP. In the legal side, however, you really rarely have to do anything like that. I would say I have never had to do anything like that because guess what? Advocacy. When you're in the legal field, they already have an advocate. It's called their attorney. Is their lawyer. They're the ones advocating for them. They don't need us to advocate for them as well. So in that sense, it's better if you stay on the sidelines and just let their attorney take things in their own hands and then just solve it. It's their relationship. You just don't step in it. You let them do what they need to do. However, if you do feel like someone is violating their rights, let's say you hear something and you hear abuse from part of their attorney, maybe something sneaky, something that is being um, it's not necessarily ethical or moral, then you can complain or you can present that and tell somebody about it. Obviously, not necessarily to the same person, but you can file a complaint with the staff at the courtroom where you are, or anybody at the bar association, or you can say something, or even a judge. If you feel like something happened that is out of the ordinary, something that is a little, sketchy, then you can report that as well. But I can tell you that in the years that I've been interpreting, I've never had that situation. I've never really had to deal with that because usually everybody takes really good care with that. Everybody is aware of their boundaries, and I just let them do their thing. So, if you go into protocols in healthcare and legal, I would suggest I like protocols for legal better. I like it better because they're much more cut and dry. The only thing different is with the proceedings is when you're in front of a judge and all of that. That's a little bit different than being with a patient, but that's just court protocols. I'm not going to go into that necessarily because that is basically, that it goes away from what the comparison would be with healthcare. But it's not too crazy. It just means that if you're in the courtroom, the judge is, it's his house or her house. You do what they say, basically, as long as you're following your protocols, you're good. So, uh, difficulty level. That's the other point. So far we have requirements for certification. I gave it the point to legal protocols. I like the legal side better. So now difficulty level. So difficulty level, I don't know. I just feel like any type of field that you're interpreting for is going to have its difficulty level no matter what. It's just a matter of getting used to it. In the healthcare, you have a ton of terminology, you have a ton of medications, you have a ton of conditions and professions and all this terminology that you have to be aware of or look it up quickly. So, regarding the legal side is the same thing. You have to be aware of certain terms, but you're only going to be able to acquire them once you are on the field and you're studying. So the more you study, obviously, the better. But you will never stop growing, no matter what field you are doing or you're working in. So I would say it's the same. It's just the same thing. Once you get used to the legal terms, it's a breeze. Once you get used to the healthcare terms, it's a breeze as well. So it's just a matter of getting used to. So I would say it's the same. Difficulty level equal for healthcare and legal. So now I wanted to talk about the work availability and the requirements for that work. So work availability, when you get certified in either one, you get placed into a directory. So your name appears in public. If you would like to leave your contact information in the healthcare, then you can do that. Also, in the legal, they ask you what information you want to put there. And if you want to have it visible for everybody, if not, then obviously, no, I don't want to be contacted and just remove my number or remove my email, what have you. It all depends on the person. But if you are serious about working, then obviously you will, at this point, will have an email that you use for business. You would have a phone number that you use for business because that's the whole point of you getting serious and getting certified. You want to work, right? So in the healthcare, you do have a directory. Um, Both NBCMI and CCHI have that directory, and every state has their own interpreter roster. So they just post it. And if I am able to say, I would be, I would dare to say that there's more availability in the legal field because there's fewer of us that dare to get into this field, and there's more demand. Obviously, there's going to be more demand because the offer is so low. Um, so once you are certified in the legal field, you get reached out by the different counties, different attorney offices, look up your names in the roster because of availability or how close you are. Because if you're billing for mileage and things like that, then obviously they want to have someone close by. So availability and comparing which has kept me busier, I would say legal 100%. So work availability is more in the legal side. I'll give that point to legal. Oh, I'm looking at my list now and I didn't know I liked legal that much. So um, another benefit of the legal side is um, the type of work. Sometimes you work a lot, you work really really hard because they might have like hearings or things like that. But sometimes if the lep is a no-show, or the hearing was continued, or there could be a million things that could happen, and it's more dynamic. So it's not like you're working all the time. There are days where you have virtually no rest, but there are other days that are really really calm, and it comes with the nature of the work. So that on that side, I prefer legal as well because it's a little bit more structured in the sense of you know what time it is. They wait 10, 15 minutes for the LEP to show. If they don't show, then obviously So there's different protocols, and it's more time constrained. So that's why it moves a little faster, and your day goes by faster, I feel. Um, that was a little side note there. But in regard to requirements for the work itself, I'm talking about attire, punctuality, and things like that, and reliability. It's the legal side is very, very demanding. Obviously, the healthcare field is demanding as well, but in the legal is a little bit more demanding in the sense of you, the ideal attire that you would have is someone might be able to confuse you with one of the attorneys. So they're expecting you to be dressed up, not necessarily in a tuxedo if you're a gentleman, or but either way, the proper attire is going to be business professional. So a jacket or a tie, never, never, ever, ever, ever jeans or a polo shirt. Please. I mean, it's very, very sensitive because what they do is someone complains and then that's it. They stop calling you. I mean, the idea is that you build a relationship with whoever's calling or contacting the interpreters and coordinating them, and make sure that wow, I mean, they hired me, they're my client at that moment, I'm gonna make sure that they shine. I'm gonna make sure that I'm the best interpreter that they could have thought of, and I'm gonna make sure that always, always, always be reliable. So when you do that, then obviously you're gonna get way more work. But it's necessary that you keep in mind that attire comes into play very, very closely to the work you get. Also, punctuality, because obviously, you have to be there on time and you have to be there a few minutes early, ideally. I have a rule of thumb. I try to be there like at least 5 minutes early. I don't do more than 5 minutes because when you do more than 5 minutes, that's when the strange requirements or the strange requests start. Right there in the legal field, we're supposed to interpret in the courtroom for the court and for the judge, not necessarily side conversations outside with the attorneys. I know we do it all the time because we are of service, but we're not obligated to do so. So ideally, you wouldn't necessarily help someone outside of the court in order to have a conversation with their attorney or anybody because, hey, if it's your client, you're an attorney, you're supposed to have that solution for your client. You're getting paid for it. So might as well have a solution for that. But most of the time they don't have anybody, or whoever they have is not really, as good as someone that has gone through a process of, certification and all that stuff. But it's important that you know that it's optional. I do it all the time because I want to be of service to the LEP specifically and to the courts. No, I'm there, might as well. But it's important that you follow protocols because you could get in trouble if you don't, and that's very, very tricky. I could tell you about an example. I mean, what the heck? I mean, I'll tell you. So here's this one time I was in a deposition and not a deposition. It was in a hearing. It was a workers' comp hearing, and the gentleman had a situation where he was really, really injured at work, and he didn't really understand everything very well because it was a head injury. So everything had to be slowed down. Everything had to be explained in a specific way for him to understand and keep up. Um, and there was a one time that the attorney gave me a piece of paper and he said, "Okay, read that to him, and I'll be right back." And I was like, no, 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 can do. I mean, I can read it if you're here. I could actually interpret while you're reading it to him. That's what we could do. And if he can ask questions, obviously it's better if he asks you because if you are gone, then I'm not going to be an interpreter anymore. I am going to he's going to believe that I'm his advisor of some sort, and that's what you don't want. So, um, yeah, that's what happened. He stayed, he started reading, and I started interpreting. After a while, in a deposition, guess what? In the same case for the same gentleman, they were going to call me in as a witness because they said that because of the interpreters, he didn't understand what was being said, and the interpreters did a bad job because they were reading things to him and they they read it in a wrong way, so that he didn't understand. So it was an interpreter error. So I was like, sure, I'll go to court. I don't care. I'm gonna get paid for that anyway. But guess what? It never happened because I know that I follow protocol, and he knows that I follow protocol. The attorneys know. So that was not going to have any type of basis. So that's why the protocols exist. They exist to protect you and protect the LEP, protect everybody. So it's important to follow it. So yeah, that was a huge side note, but basically that's what I wanted to say about work availability and requirements. I would say that work availability in healthcare is good because there's a lot of work and many agencies are hiring people to work remote. I would say the availability is more in remote work. If you're okay with doing remote work, which many of us are and many of us prefer it, then there's a lot of availability for you to work from home, for example. So that's another option there. So availability, I would say, it's 50-50. I mean, there are ways to work in the healthcare, and there's ways of working in the legal field that you will be busy enough. So, well, one of the things to keep in mind with the availability is that some agencies won't hire you unless you have a couple years of experience in the healthcare industry. So it's a little tricky, even if you're certified. So I don't know if the rules have changed a bit for some of them, but that was a problem that certified interpreters were having. It's like, okay, but I'm certified. I can prove that I can handle an encounter. But they were like, oh, yeah, I understand, but you don't have 2 years of experience, so I can't hire. So it's a little catch 22 there because if you don't hire me, I can't get experience. So that doesn't present itself so much on the legal field. But, availability, I would say 50-50. Now, let's talk a little bit about the interesting part. And I'm going to rub my hands together now because this is what everybody wants to talk about rates. So, rates are very, very important uh, when it comes to our livelihood. Obviously, if we do get certified, it's because we're serious and we want to be able to sustain ourselves and our families with the work. So rates come into play. Now, I'm gonna speak from the perspective of Spanish. I know that I've been talking a lot about all of it, but I've been looking at it from the Spanish language perception and Spanish interpreters, which is the most common one. Uh, but just because it's common, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's convenient all the time. So, for example, with the rates, usually when it's Spanish, there's more offer in that language, so rates tend to be a little lower in our area, for example, to do on site. I'm not gonna go into conference because that's a completely different animal right there. But when you're doing on site for medical, like in hospitals or clinics, it goes about $35 to $45 the hour in my area. Now, some of you will be like, "Oh my God, that's so low." Some of you will be like, "Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal." So it depends. It depends on your area. It depends on how much your cost of living is. It varies. So I'm not gonna say that there's a flat rate for the whole country. I'm just saying in my area in Pennsylvania, that's more or less what we see. Um, on the phone or remote, when we're working through agencies, the rates vary depending on your experience and your certification. I would say it goes right now. The industry, it's the rates are dropping, to be honest. So it's going like 30 to 35 cents per minute talk time when you're a contractor. So I would say it's around that. It's between 35 to 45 at the most. 45 would be a really really good rate nowadays when you're talking about Spanish. So that's on that side of the healthcare. Obviously, you have if you go in on site, you cover mileage so that you can charge your clients for it or your agency, which is hiring you and you're their contractor. I usually go by the federal rate. And this year, 2024, it's set at 67 cents per mile. So depending on the distance, you just choose a starting point that is standard. I always choose my office, and then to the point where it's your destination. So basically, you calculate round trip, the total miles, and then you bill per each mile 67 cents. I like to go with the federal rate because I feel like it's fair, and nobody can debate it. It's like okay, that's the federal rate. Um, so you have that. You have your per hour. If you go on site, you have the 2 hour minimum. Um, I don't like to negotiate that. It's a 2 hour minimum no matter what. I don't like to do like, oh no, yeah, I'm gonna pay you for 1 hour. Sorry, I'm not going. Because you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what you're letting go of other things because then you want to just make it to this assignment. I don't know. I don't like working for that type of agency because I feel like it's not fair. 2 hour minimum is a standard and it's a standard for a reason. So I just go with that. So 2 hour minimum, 67 cents and 35 to $45 the hour. Uh, in the legal side, on the other hand, so some interpreters might say that they go higher on the healthcare and because of their experience, which is good. If they can find the clients to pay them, fantastic. But I like the legal side better because there's a standard in the state. So anybody can go into the state's website and see what the certification is, the level, and how much it pays. So for example, I'm certified in Pennsylvania. So the certified rate for interpreters in Pennsylvania is $65 the hour, 2 hour minimum, and that includes if you have to go mileage, if you have to go anywhere, you charge the federal rate, And on top of that, then sometimes if you have to drive over 2 hours when it's a round trip over 2 hours, then you get paid for, guess what? The name of this podcast, total travel time. So you get to bill for travel time on top of everything else, which is 50% of the hour. So you get paid 65 per hour, 2 hour minimum, 67 cents per mile in 2024. And if you travel more than 2 hours, and you get paid $35 per hour, or I'm sorry, $32.5 per hour, uh, every hour that you spend on traveling. So yeah, in that sense, I think that legal takes the cake. I like being certified in legal better. I see. So the last point that I want to get across is the other work prospects. Sometimes that you have other things that can um, stem from your work in your field. For example, if you're doing healthcare, sometimes you might get some type of translation that you could do that requires that your expertise and maybe I don't know, prescription or like discharge instructions, etc., etc. You might get work like that, but it's not too often that it happens. I've noticed because usually there's other solutions that institutions have in place for that kind of work. But you might get other assignments. Other people might reach out to you. Other agencies might reach out to you through the roster, and you might get hired for other assignments that are in your area, which is pretty cool. So that's there's always a possibility there. Ethics do not allow us to provide our contact information if we were working for somebody else. So, for example, if an agency sends you to a hospital or a clinic, you're not supposed to hand out your business card and say, "Hey, if you ever need me again, call me." No, no, no. That's poaching. So what you do is that if they ask to be, need an interpreter for some other time, then you let them know that they need to get a hold of whoever sent the interpreter in the first place, and I'm sure that they'll consider you for next time as well. But we ever never ever ever give them our information because that's not nice. That's not cool. So um, on the other side, when you're talking about the legal field, you have many different people that are going to reach out to you through the roster. I've had many people reach out to me more than in the healthcare, reaching out because they know I'm certified and they can see it, and more certified interpreters are being requested for depositions and other proceedings that are private, that are not necessarily through the county or through the state. It's more through the law offices. So they hire me for that. Sometimes they hire me to do transcriptions. Sometimes they hire me to do translation of transcriptions. Sometimes they hire me to do transcription and translation. So there's many different branches or many different ways of getting more work in the legal field. I say that there are more opportunities because you are more exclusive, I would say, when you're talking about the legal field. So many more people reach out that way. So you just have to make sure that your information is up to date. But if you are certified in the legal field, you're gonna get really busy and branch out in different assignments for different types of proceeding. One other option or opportunity that you have is through court reporters. It's been a really pleasant surprise, and it's been amazing to work with court reporters because court reporters sometimes they get asked if they know of interpreters anywhere, so they refer you if you do a good job and they feel like their job was easier because you were there. That creates another window of opportunity right there. There's many court reporters that have reached out to me because of assignments that I've gotten through the years, and they just refer more clients to me. Obviously, it's a business relationship. They don't have to reach out to me, but sometimes they do because one, I might be close. Two, they like the work I do, and basically, as long as their job is easy, I'm sure that they're gonna want to like refer somebody. And they do it genuinely because sometimes they're not doing it for a commission, but sometimes they do hire interpreters through an agency of their own, and that's okay too. So yeah, in that sense, when we're talking about possibility of branching out into other areas, I would say legal takes the cake. I don't know. All these items I cross off the legal, so I think I have a favorite. Basically, I really enjoy legal. I think it has many advantages and you know many possibilities. So I think that if you are considering getting certified in the legal field, I would say go for it. Go for it. Don't even think about it. You might be a little bit intimidated, but that's not because it's legal. That just means it may be just because it's a whole new field to you, and that's fine. But you just have to study and practice. Many of the hearings, or most of hearings, are actually public in the state of Pennsylvania. I don't know about other states, but if you want, you could just go and sit in hearings and listen. You listen to how things are going. You listen how the process goes. You listen to the terminology that is being used. You go to different hearings of different types. There's traffic hearings. There's criminal hearings. There's um, I don't know. I don't think truancy is public, but there's many different kinds of hearings that you can participate in, and basically learn as you go. So if you can take the time, that would be very beneficial. I've noticed that I've said very in many quite a few times, but I know you get what I'm saying. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a I don't know, like an insight in what healthcare certification and legal certification entails. And if you were to ask me, I would really prefer the legal one. I think it's more beneficial. I'm not necessarily saying one is better than the other. I'm just talking about personal preference. Sometimes our colleagues would prefer to just go into healthcare because that's what they know, that's what they love, and that's phenomenal. So whatever your calling is, go for it. If it's conference, if it's healthcare, if it's legal, if it's all in one and remote in person, simultaneous, consecutive, whatever it is, just pursue that and make sure that you're happy with what you're doing and that it's well paid, obviously, because if you're making a living and you're being serious about it, then obviously it needs to make sense. All right, so I won't take up much of your time. I hope that this was worth your time here today, just listening in, and it helps you clear up any type of doubts that you might have had with one or the other and what certification entails. And I will see you in the next episode, and we'll talk about a different subject altogether. If you have any ideas, you shoot them our way. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, as you can tell, and we just want to interact with you. So we're going to be sending out newsletters and just growing our database that way, so that we can share more ideas and just talk through there. All right. So thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.